So I'm just making a quick video to help you understand how to create a concept map. Now you are going to have to make concept maps for every module in Bio 189. And the reason for that is because concept maps are a really great way to help study. It helps you practice the vocab terms, and it also helps you make connections in your mind between those vocab terms, which is really important for a good understanding of bio. So let's talk about how to do these assignments. So to do this, we are going to use an example. In this example, I'm going to be making a concept map about the cardiovascular system. And here are the 6 terms I need to use in my map. So just like how I will always give the terms to you, these terms are presented in alphabetical order. However, you don't have to use them in alphabetical order. You should decide the best order for you to place them in. And then just a reminder that the most important part of the concept map is explaining why you are connecting certain vocab terms. So there's going to be many ways that you could do this. The most important thing is you explain to me why you did it the way that you chose. Okay, so let's talk about how to break that down and how to actually make this map. Okay, so step 1 is you want to define all of the vocab terms. A really easy way to do this is go to Cengage or MindTap, which is your online textbook. Yours should look something roughly like this. You're not going to have this little side panel. But in your version also, there should be an option for you to search inside the textbook. So let's go ahead and search for our first term, which is artery. And oh, look, helpfully, it's right there in the glossary, a definition for artery. So a large diameter blood vessel that carries blood away from the heart. So we can go ahead and write down the definition. And we'll just repeat that process for all of our terms so that we have defined all of our vocab terms. So you'll get something like that. Okay, so that's step 1, define all of your terms. Step 2, once we've defined all of our terms, now we want to identify similarities between the definitions. As you're defining your terms, you'll start to notice like, oh, these are both kind of talking about similar things. I could probably connect these terms. For example, you might notice that arteries are large diameter blood vessels and so are veins. So these are similarities between these two terms. Also, you may have noticed as you were defining your terms that the atrium is a heart chamber, as is a ventricle, also a heart chamber. You might also see some connections between multiple terms, or maybe connections that even include a term themselves. So like arteries carry blood, blood is one of our terms, and the heart pumps blood. So this is just helping us start to see some potential connections we could draw between these terms. Once again, this is not all of the potential connections, but it is at least a connection to each term. So I've done at least one connection for each term. Okay, so now that you've done that, you're going to go ahead and just group similar terms together in terms of how you connected them, or like the similarities you found between them. So for example, artery and vein, those are similar because they're large diameter blood vessels. Atrium and ventricle, those are heart chambers. And then artery, heart, and blood both have to do with like carrying or pumping blood, something about moving blood around. Okay, so now that we have that, we can actually start to draw connections between those terms and make our concept map. So let's go ahead and start with large diameter blood vessels, like that first little grouping, and start to make our map. So as a reminder, this concept map is about the cardiovascular system, so I'm going to include that on my map. You don't have to, but I think it's going to help with making this map. And I'm going to just draw an arrow from cardiovascular system to artery and to vein, and I'm going to explain the connection there is that the cardiovascular system includes large diameter blood vessels, which would be arteries and veins. There we go. So that is our first part of the concept map. Now let's go ahead and add our second connection, which is carry or pump blood, and we're going to add these words. So we could say that the cardiovascular system also includes the heart, and that the heart pumps blood. So see, I connected heart and blood, and then I put the word pump here to like explain why I connected those two terms. And then here we're going to connect artery to blood. Artery already has a connection, but we can connect it more than once. There's nothing wrong with that. So we're going to say artery carries blood away from the heart. So artery carries blood away from the heart. That's why there's a connection between artery and blood. And then finally, our last grouping, which was heart chambers, ventricle, and atrium. So coming off from heart, I'm going to draw a connection to atrium and say chamber that receives the blood. And then coming off from heart, I'm going to say ventricle is the chamber that pumps out the blood. Now, where did I get these connections from? That came from those definitions that we already found. So I had to go back to my definitions to kind of add some of the explanation there. And that's it. There we go. we made our concept map. We used all of the terms. All of the terms are connected to at least one other term, and each connection includes at least a word or two explaining that connection. And that's all you have to do. I want to emphasize that there's no one right concept map, like there's not one right answer. What matters is your explanations and that your explanations make sense. So for example, this is the map that we just made, but we also could have made a map that looks something like this. So we could have said cardiovascular system is connected to blood because the cardiovascular system supplies the body with blood. Blood is pumped through the body by the heart. The heart chamber that pumps the blood is the ventricle, and the chamber that receives the blood is the atrium, etc. Like this map looks totally different than the map over here, and the connections are different, but that's fine because the connections are logical and they're well explained. We also could have done something like this. I see students do this a good amount of time where they almost made like one really long sentence that connects all of the terms in a line. So if you did this, you would read it something like vein carries blood towards the heart. Blood enters the heart through atriums, then blood travels to ventricles, which pumps blood into arteries. Like that is a very different format of a concept map, but it's still totally correct because each of those explanations makes sense. And then last thing I want to just emphasize is the format that you make your concept map does not matter at all. You should pick whatever makes more sense to you. So here's a very beautiful student example of a concept map done on pencil and paper or pen and paper. If that's how you want to do it, if you want to do it on paper, do it that way. Or here's a very nice student example of a digital concept map where they use different colors to explain each connection that they made between the vocab terms. This is really nice too. I don't care what format you pick. You should pick whatever is easier for you. If you find that you're trying to use a website to make your concept map and it's taking you like hours and hours to figure out the website, don't use a website. Just do it on paper. All that I ask is if you do it on paper that your handwriting is legible enough for me to read. And that's it. So I hope that helped with your concept map assignments. And if you have any questions, please reach out to me on Canvas or via email.